evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Ridgecrest City Council. It is, I'm going to go and call the meeting to order at 5:32 p.m. with roll call.
Mayor Bruin.
Here.
Mr. Blades.
Present.
Mr. Rajaratnam.
Present.
Mr. Heyman.
Present.
Ms. Breeden.
Present.
5 present, you have a quorum.
Great. Next item is our approval of our agenda for this evening. Are there any changes for the agenda? Hearing none, do I have a motion for approval of the agenda as presented?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and second.
Please vote. Five ayes, motion carries.
Okay.
Leaning in.
Next is we have public comment on closed session. We have one closed session item, which is conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation. Is there any public comment on the closed session? Hearing none, I'll go ahead and close public comment, and we will be in closed session, returning to our regular session at 6 p.m. See you in about 20 minutes. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go ahead and call our meeting back to order out of closed session. And we'll go ahead and begin our regular session by asking everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Travis, why don't you go and lead us?
Seriously?
Ready? No, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Councilman Rajaratnam.
Please join me in prayer if you would. Lord, thank you for giving us this day. Thank you for our country. Bless this country. Give your protection to our country, Lord. Give your wisdom to the leaders to guide this country to higher levels. Lord, I pray for our troops who are in harm's way. Protect them from all evil. I pray for our police department who put their lives on line from the time they come out of their house in the morning, Lord. Be with them, protect them, and bless them for what they do. Bless their families, Lord. Pray for the city council. Lord, thank you for the opportunity you have given to us to serve this community. Lord, give your wisdom, your discernment as we discuss, deliberate, and make decisions for this community. Let those decisions be fruitful and meaningful and useful for this community, Lord. Bless each one of us here. In Jesus' precious name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Okay, city attorney report.
Martin, we can't hear
Martin,
you.
you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. You're good, sir. We can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
I apologize. Council met in closed session on one item, existing litigation. There were no reportable actions taken by the council.
Thank you, sir. So first on our agenda today is a presentation from our Measure L and Measure V Standing Committee. This is their annual reporting. I wanted to take a moment and quickly address the public. We're going to allow limited questions of the committee after the presentation. We got ourselves into a situation in a previous meeting where the questions became a back and forth dialogue. We're not going to have that in terms of public comment, but we are going to welcome you the opportunity to ask any questions, and if we need to get back to you or have a further discussion, we'll bring that back to the council. If I can ask Holly Saab to go ahead and come up. Let me just go ahead and share real quickly. The Measure L and V Committee, if you're not aware, this committee has existed since 2012 during the passage of Measure L. They serve as an independent review and audit of the intentions of the measures being fulfilled. They have been providing reports for the last, this is their 10th year, I believe, in terms of ninth year of reporting. And it is made up of 5 members, and I'd like to ask each of those members if they are present to stand. Mr. Chip Holloway, once again, Ms. Holly Staub, Jonathan Harper, Chris Hill, And Vunag, I don't think Vu or Chris are here, but just once again, thank you for your service to the community and thank you for working to ensure that the citizens are represented in this process. And with that, I will go ahead and turn it over and let Holly proceed.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. As he said, my name is Holly Staub. I'm a member of the committee for the first time this year. I'd like to thank the rest of the committee that was with us. Chris and Vu couldn't be here tonight, but they were a big help in putting together what we have to present. So we've got a nice slideshow to kind of highlight what we reported, but it'll say this numerous times in here, but the entire report, along with the city's financial report, are all available on the city's website if you want to see more details, okay? All right, a little background. Not the type to read every word on every slide, so I'll just kind of touch some highlights for you. If you don't know what this is, so it started out as Measure L, was superseded by Measure V. It's the 1% sales tax that comes into the city. There was along with getting that voted in, you had to have an oversight committee of community members who make sure that that money is being spent how the city said they're going to spend that money. So that's what we're here for, and we have to report on that annually. Yes, so what they're talking about, that was hard for us to remember too. We're reporting on fiscal year 20 to 21. So this is it's a year old. So keep that in mind as we're talking about different things. This is just a brief of our responsibilities, kind of what I just talked about. Okay, so tracking. Part of what makes our job easier as a committee members is the city does a great job of tracking this money. As those taxes come in, they're depositing to the general fund. It is a general fund tax. And they're tracked separately, though, within that fund. So both through public safety and through public works, those numbers are tracked the whole way through. So it's really easy at the end of that fiscal year to look back and see. I mean, easy for us because finance people are doing their job of tracking where that's going. That ACFR, the website's on here. The website, I found it easily to put into this report right on the city's website. So anyone who wants to see all the money that the city's spending on what, it's in that. Okay, so this is the city's revenue broken down by the basic sources that come in. You'll see on there, Measure V brings in 33%. That's a pretty good chunk. So we're talking about a lot of money, so it's a big responsibility to make sure it's spent correctly. There is still some money trickling in from Measure L. That was one of my first questions as a committee member, is how is that? Apparently that's because it's from back taxes, I guess would be the best way to explain that. So people that have taxes that were due years and years ago that are still paying to them, excuse me, that still comes in and they're labeled separately as Measure L. It is tracked to that detail. Okay, so our expectation as the committee is that as the city promised when this was voted in, that money would be spent strictly on public safety and public works. In that public works expenditures, those were mainly going to go towards street repairs, street upkeep, street maintenance, all of that. Part of what we really have noticed, not only this year, but previous years in the committee, is those prices, especially with public safety, and well, with both public safety and public works, have been increasing greatly over the years. There's some reasons up there. They're not hard to find. Anyone that wants to look into that further. The Measure V monies cover about a third of the public safety budget for the city. With that money this year, they purchased that used Tahoe. It's not a brand new one. They are very good about, and looking through all this, I was impressed with the effort made to save money where they could and spend the money wisely on things that were really going to benefit the city. And not be cheap to the point where they're gonna have to just pay more later, but invest in things that really are going to contribute well. So there's a neat data point down there at the bottom, or not a good data point really, how much these expenses has gone up just in purchasing a vehicle. The money also goes toward the department positions, officer training, background investigations. That number, I think, was somewhere around $40,000 or something, just per one police officer that they're thinking of hiring. No, 45, sorry, 45, Travis is telling me. So it's a lot of money, a whole lot of money. Okay, so like we said, it's about 34% is what goes toward Measure V. And then, oh, sorry, twisting that up. Okay, so from Measure V, 34% of Measure V goes toward the police department, 40% goes towards public works. Okay, so this next part, follow me. So you've got the city's general fund. 60% of that pays for those other things, salaries, electricity for streets, and those other things. That 40% that's left over, out of that, 90% is what the city has to maintain their streets with. Without Measure V, that wouldn't be very much money at all, as you can see from those other charts that we've shown. So Measure V is able to cover expenditures. I think that says the slurry machine and slurry, not the slurry machine, the slurry materials, excuse me, and equipment purchases and other things. There's a 5-year plan in place right now that was laid out to resurface 77% of the city's streets. Because of this money, they've been able to not only stick with that plan, but really get ahead of it. So they're getting ready in January. They should have a 7-year plan out to bring us to 100% completion, but we're 100% completion of those 77% of the streets. We're already at 60% of that. And that's all because of this Measure V money. Here's some nice pictures that show the difference in some of these streets. That's Downs. I'm sure anyone that's driven around town has seen the work that's been done. I know there's frustration that it's not being done as fast as some people would like, but if you want to know more about why, come to some meetings and ask some questions and you'll find out. There's a lot of good reasons. So the work is being done and the plans are in place. Okay, so there is carryover. That's concerning because you think, okay, so do you have more money than you need? The carryover isn't more money than we need. The carryover has to do with how they're budgeting for the different projects. So right now we do have that carryover, the carryover from 19 to 20, and then there's carryover now from 20 to 21, but already all of that is budgeted into future projects that are being planned and will take place. So there's not extra money. This is kind of our summary. So Measure V continues to provide a stable and increasing funding source each year. Financial data and details and expenditures were readily provided to the committee to support the review of efforts that Measure L and V has funded. That's something we wanted to talk about. There's you hear a lot of murmurings, and just even at work today when I was telling people what I was doing tonight, a lot of people, oh, I don't know how they're spending that money. They should be more transparent. There should be this. And so I would love to find better ways to spread that word, but we encountered no hurdles at all with getting to any detail that we wanted. We had open lines to anyone in the staff, to department directors, anyone we wanted to talk to. That financial report was there. We were given way more numbers than we ever needed to look at. So the information is there. It's hard to sort through. So I would recommend talking to people, but at least in my experience, anyone I talked to had all the information I needed and was able to explain it to me in a way that was easy to understand. So we would like to thank everyone who helped us with that. And I think that's it. Does anyone have any questions?
So Holly, if I can ask you to, can I ask you to come over and sit down here at the front and turn on this microphone? That way we can record any questions that are asked. We'll go ahead and bring it back to council first. Are there any council questions first that you'd like to ask from
Yeah, and there's 2 mics. Do you want to, John or Chip, do you guys?
Yeah, if either one of you want to join, feel free.
Help me with some questions.
That way, if there's questions, you guys can pitch in on it.
I had a couple of comments, if I may.
Absolutely.
I encourage everyone to read this. You had some amazing factoids in this.
Hey, Peggy.
A mile of street, a linear
Peggy,
mile.
Peggy.
A linear mile, can you hear me better now?
Yep.
A linear mile was $1.8 million. I was astounded by that, and I hear the people talking and speaking on social media, and sometimes when they come in the office, how we should be, could be, would be doing things. when you gave me that calculation, when you talked about the price of a vehicle, I thought this team has done a fantastic job in bringing out the important parts of what your job was, and then adding things that supplemented the information of what you got that helped me understand more fully and hopefully will help others understand it. You did a fantastic job. It's filled with various factoids that are not part of the report, but fulfill the report. And I thank the team for a very good job. Well
Thank you,
done.
Maggie.
Thank you.
We had a lot of help. A lot of people.
Thank you for telling us that because this is my second year, and I inherited a report the first year, which was last year, and it was about 90 pages of document,
recall
of every
trying to
number.
read
There's some engineers that I probably would just read that with glee. But the committee committed, and I thank them for that, especially new people, because they had nobody to trust but myself and Chris. But we got last year's report down probably 50%. But our whole goal is that people actually read the damn thing. You know, we work on it for 6 months. Everybody has an opinion, but nobody wants to do any research. But your number, 1.81, when I was on the council that asked for Measure L, that was $1 million a mile. That's an 81% increase in less than a decade. And people are screaming right now because of a 10% increase in inflation. So public services and city services have been in an inflationary period long before the inflationary period we hit today. And then you add the 20% increase for anything in Ridgecrest. So if it costs one price in LA, it's going to cost even more to do it in Ridgecrest for the same thing. But everybody in this town deals with that. But thank you for noticing that.
Welcome. Go ahead.
I just want to say hats off to the committee for a job well done. This is the most readable and I think the best presentation on Measure L and B that I've seen in my almost 4 years now on the council. But it is readable. It hits everything that I think is the important topics. And one of the issues last night is at a facilitation meeting for the it's for the groundwater and the water district. But one of the concerns was getting data to individuals, the public, and to the boards, but in a manner that is comprehensible to everybody, and how important that is. And I think this kind of hits it right on the head. But good job, everybody.
Thank you. That was definitely our goal.
Solomon? Do you have any, if you have anything. I don't have anything.
Just want to say thanks. Thank you all for spending your time and really appreciate that report. Just have one question. On the 5-year street rehabilitation plan, how much money was spent on that? Do you know?
I don't know that we have that broken down exactly. There is a chart, is it in here, that shows, let's see.
Travis, do you know?
You could look at, I think the best way to look at it, maybe on the chart that's on page 3.
That's what I was going to say.
That shows the public works from 2013, 2021, there's 8.97 million spent on public works.
Oh.
I don't know if that's, I don't know how accurate that is.
So can you, I guess my question in regards to that is, are you speaking of how much money we spent developing the 5-year plan or how much money we spent actually in accomplishing and implementing it?
Yeah.
So our 5-year plan is comprehensive. It includes part of the grant-funded streets that we have. We show the grant-funded streets within that 5-year plan. So you can literally say that 100% of the public works budget that has gone into any form of street maintenance is from Measure V.
Okay.
So all the money that's come out for public works, whether it's matches of $100,000 to get $1 million or whatever it is, all that money has gone right back into the roads, into concrete, asphalt, base, sidewalks, you name it, that's where it's all gone.
Sure. Thank you.
So.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to echo what everybody else said. Thank you guys for giving up your free time. I don't think the public's quite aware of that you were all asked to volunteer. You stepped up. That's your incentive, was just to volunteer and give back to the community. So I really appreciate all of you doing that. I know there were a couple other folks that aren't here tonight, but I appreciate that. I was going to have another question maybe for Travis, but he sat down. And that's really just, well, because we talked about and and maybe Chip, maybe you could answer this. Maybe, we talked about the inflationary rate and how much stuff costs. Is that mostly in the, is that in the material, or is that in labor? Or is that just all around? Is that a silly question, Travis?
It's everything, huh?
Yeah.
So the ones that we can really quantify are material costs, right?
Right.
Material costs. Any kind of material that comes here, whether we are getting it locally or we're getting it out of county or in Bakersfield, you can just look at what the cost of concrete's done in the last year and a half. I mean, the surcharge for a yard of concrete was $7. Then in July, it went to $15. And now they're having another increase to $21. And that's just for fuel. So, I mean, the inflationary rate, yes, we've seen Measure V revenues increase. But I think it's very safe to say, with all the numbers that we crunched and sat at the table and talked about, the inflationary cost, it's really at a 2-to-1 ratio. If ours goes up 100,000, it costs us 200. So it does not keep up.
Remind you that this report contains nothing with what everybody's complaining about today. Right now. This report's a year old.
Yeah.
2021. It's more than a year old.
So exactly, it's factual data from 2021 numbers.
So it doesn't even count the massive.
Yeah, so you guys couldn't hear, but what Chip was saying is that the numbers we were talking about, the inflationary numbers, the cost of roads, the cost of materials, that's 2020 to 2021 fiscal year. So what we're going to see is a much larger impact to Measure V in the future going forward. But no, thank you again. I appreciate your guys' time, because you're giving up your personal time when I think you guys both have Burroughs Booster stuff to do, and you have personal lives and families. And John, you need more stuff to do, I think. Yep. So, Chip, are you just going to keep
Hey,
volunteering?
while
for
I'm
things,
here,
or-
because I don't think I'll be here again. Just remember, the fair is October 21st to the 23rd.
Your shameful plug was already coming later.
Speaking of being busy right now.
All right. Well done. Well done.
Shameless plug was coming.
Well done.
Let me also again reiterate thanks to the entire committee. I was going to address one point just for the sake of the conversation, which is one of the points that you presented in the report, is that the point of this report at the close of June 30, 2021, we had a substantial carryover of dollars in the Public Works Department. I believe you reported about $6.3 million. I just want to make sure that people understand what that cause is when we were unable to continue to do streets projects as a result of the pandemic, we didn't allocate those dollars to other things. We kept those dollars exactly where they belong in Public Works and just worked on scheduling the projects to be able to ramp up. And that's why we have, I think it's north of $3 million worth of projects that are scheduled to roll out beginning January, roughly. Does that sound about right, Travis? Right about the time you abandoned us?
Yes, we are currently out to bid for 3 rehab projects, so full asphalt restoration. And we have 1 maintenance contract coming out at the end of this month, which is $1.75 million of chip sealing, and 3 HSIPs are going out to bid tomorrow, which are highway safety improvements, which were grants we got that has matching funds. So there's going to be about 9 projects that we are bidding within the next 2 months.
Yeah, and so you're going to see that carryover drop dramatically, but that carryover was because during the pandemic we weren't able to do the things we wanted to do, but we made sure that we held to the commitment that Measure V expected of us. Yeah.
I had one more thing, Mr. Mayor, and I wanted to point this back to the committee. Do you have anything back to us, the council? Any request?
He's asking for things we can do better. Just say no.
Oh, I'm not talking about the staff. I'm talking about your council and your support. And,
Travis said that we should give 100% to public safety first meeting.
Yeah.
I mean, not public safety, public works.
I did say that. I think, so last year's report actually had like a list of bullet points. But I would say, I don't think we talked about it, I don't think we ever did. Those were all addressed. They were basically things about what you said, Eric, other tracking avenues, and I think many of them were actually already being done last year as well. I think all I would say was to continue to try to get that data out in ways that people can digest it and understand it. So
Yeah, I think we can't ever lose it as much as people want. Think somehow it can go away. But if you look at the percentage of the general fund now, as from Measure V and L is 34% of the general fund. When we started, it was 16%. That means all other revenue resources are not dependable or are shrinking, but the one source that we can count on is taking up the slack. I frankly was shocked because I had stepped away from council for 4 years to see how little the general fund had gone up outside of it was a city-changing event that Measure L was in place when it was, or the city. We thought it just was going to address redevelopment losses, which was about $3.5 million a year, but that was quickly absorbed and then exceeded. And I will tell the story, and Chief Strand can verify if I'm lying. When Measure L passed, I went to him, and it was Public Works Director Spear. I said, let's go to the public with our plan before they ask. 50-50. 50 to Public Works, 50 to Public Safety. And the chief, that was before all this craziness. That was before even defund police, but it was a bunch of different things that happened in California, which probably led to defund the police, frankly. He said, I don't think I will ever need more than 25% of Measure L. You remember that conversation? That's what he said.
He's certainly not going to admit it. Let's put it that way.
And you can see how it changed by no fault of anyone that had the vision they had. And then, frankly, in our marketing, I think the council, I didn't think anybody did it on purpose, but we knew we were going to raise about $3 to $4 million a year. We knew we had 126 miles of streets, and we knew that day that it was $1 million a mile to pave the streets. So I think somehow, because we didn't I hate to use the word dumb it down, but put it in a form where people read the fun facts, so to speak. If you got $121 million to do 121 miles of street, and you're only bringing in $3 million, you're not going to solve the street problem in 2 or 3 years of Measure V. So we didn't do a good job of explaining how much it cost back then. And like Travis says, it's almost 2 to 1 now just on streets from what it was back then. So I think it's important that future committees keep trying to keep it simple, stupid, so people will actually read the report and see where the costs are coming from and understand it a little better. And all the numbers are great, but I don't think that just glazes people's eyes over. But I think councils have always done the right thing as far, I'd love to catch you guys, and the council has no input on our committee. I've done this 2 years. Council members have no input. We've never had conversation with council members. You have no authority whatsoever with our committee, so stay away. But I'm just kidding. But if the public starts understanding those numbers, if the former mayor was shocked by some of the numbers, what do you think the average person on the street thinks when they see some of those numbers? And the cost to recruit a police officer. When people grumble about giving a raise to a police officer that you can retain, that knows the community, is experienced, and is less liable to create a liability that can cost the city millions of dollars, and you look at that cost compared to what the cost of raising and retaining an officer and then the cost of recruiting an officer, it is ludicrous to not pay existing good officers and then go risk the cost to bring in new officers that are not experienced, and you have no idea what you're going to get. That report makes that clearly and painfully obvious. So that's all I got.
I think there actually is a paragraph on the last page that kind of addresses that. But one of the things that I failed to say before was that this money not only helps maintain, but it helps us grow. It helps meet growing needs of a growing community. And I think that's very important to remember. And that I think the one thing I noticed personally was events like your budget workshop was very helpful in educating and understanding what those growing needs are and what those maintenance costs are, like what Chip was saying, and to help educate everyone what's needed.
Cool. Thank you, Holly.
Well, thank you, guys. Again, compacting this into something that's readable is part of our communication goals. It's been part of our goals in making these things more and more digestible. So thank you for working to that goal, and thank you for all your efforts. I'll go ahead and open. Did you have, Travis wants to speak.
I just wanted to thank the committee too. I know I bogged you guys down a lot with a lot of the engineering stuff, but I appreciate y'all sticking through and not bailing on me, because it
Unlike
would have been
yourself.
rough if we would have lost all you guys at one time. So thank you all.
Job well done.
Job well done. Okay. So before we do, so we'll go ahead and open up for the floor. Is there anybody who would like to ask a question from the floor?
Union Council, Scott Miller, 341 East Wilson, Ridgecrest. Does overtime for the police officers come out of Measure V, or does that come out of a different fund?
It depends on where that officer is classified, because it's by the position, correct?
Correct. Yeah, if you have a Measure V funded officer, then that overtime for that officer would come out of that account.
Okay. Does the Oversight Committee attend the budget meetings? And do they have input during the budget meetings?
It's
So we purely are looking over what monies have been spent in this particular fiscal year. We're not providing input to what's being planned for the future.
not that Holly doesn't have she has no problem calling me out.
No, I don't at all. But
yeah.
as far as my role in this committee,
And I realize that we've had 9 years of great performance. What are the teeth behind this committee if they found an issue? What happens?
It would be this report. And this report is obviously public record. They have no powers to sanction the city. They have the power of the report. The report would be is that they found funds that didn't meet the intent of Measure V. They would report that to council. That would then go to the community, and the community then would use that in their decision if they ever elected to approve Measure V again in the future.
The community would make their own teeth, if you will.
Correct.
Last question with the increase of gasoline prices. I think I saw in this report it's 33% is gas tax that we receive from gas tax.
Seven.
Did I look at that wrong?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Will we see an increase in gas tax revenue with the increase of gas prices?
Most of that funding goes into our SB1, goes into the road maintenance RMRA account. We do see an increase in that if the gas prices go up.
Okay.
But you also look at it as gas prices go up, you also have the people use less gas, so it kind of.
Right, I get it. And Mr. Trend, what is SB01, or you said it in
It's Senate Bill 1. It's
Oh,
that,
Senate Bill, okay.
yeah, the road maintenance tax that was passed a few years ago by California voters that allows for additional funding to the cities for road maintenance.
Very well, thank you.
Quick add-on to that too is as gas taxes go up, you can nod your head, Travis. The largest component of the cost of asphalt involves petroleum products. So it goes up higher than we're going to regain in the gas price increase on the tax. So it's not even a wash.
Any other public comment or questions?
Kathy Russell, 500 Amanda Street. So a little background. Measure L was, put in place at what year?
2012?
And did it have a certain timeline?
5 years.
5 years.
5 years,
So we keep renewing it,
correct,
and the tax is a sales tax, is that correct?
correct.
And that was an increase of what?
Well, Measure L was 3/4 cent.
3/4 cent.
And then in 2016, when the voters approved Measure V, that was a full 1 cent, so increased by 1/4%.
So is Measure V an extension of Measure L, or are they combined, or are they separate?
It was an extension. It was an extension with an increase of 3/4 cent to a full cent for an additional 8 years.
Okay, so that's the extension for Measure L is Measure V. Is
Correct.
that
And
correct?
Measure V ends in 2024.
2024. And thank you to the committee. I guess that's great, your volunteers to do that. So you just have oversight on what's been spent after it's been spent? So basically, then the Public Works and Public Safety have those dollars at their discretion, and you only get to see it after the fact? It's just a question. Is that correct?
This committee, this oversight committee only sees it after the fact.
Okay.
But like the budget committee and other committees would have that
Approve
input.
those kind of things? Okay.
Right.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment or questions? Seeing none, I will thank you guys for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you for your report. And anybody out in the public interested, do we have that up on the website as of yet? We do not, based on the presentation.
It will be tomorrow.
Oh, fantastic. No, that's great. Bottom line is we'll have it out on our website if anybody'd like to research or find out some information on it. And then they always can, obviously, of course, reach out to the committee, and we'll be happy to connect them. Fantastic.
So you guys, so the public probably couldn't hear that, but the staff was just saying that there's going to be a one-page summary social media blurb put out
Yeah, with a link to the full report.
with a link to the full report.
Great. Okay. Next item on our agenda is public comment of items not on the agenda. Persons wishing to address the council on matters that are within the council's jurisdiction and do not already appear on the agenda may do so at this time. Council will not respond to any public comments, but will provide direction to staff to collect information. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the City Council will not take any action on any item that does not appear on this agenda. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes. The public comment section of the agenda is limited to 1 hour, and each speaker is asked to provide his name and address. Are there any public comment? And I think we have our first taker.
This will be, do I have to push a button? Oh,
No, you're good.
this will be easy. I received a visitor this afternoon at my shop and one phone call during dinner. The question is, what's going on with the electricity in this place? The city at different intersections, the lights are either stone red or they're blank or they're blinking. And electricity seems to be going on and off variably in different parts of town. The question I was asked, what's going on? If anybody in the room knows with certainty, share it with us. Or have you guys noticed?
Well, I mean, did I notice the power was out when I woke up this morning? Yes, I noticed the power was out. Do I know specifically the cause or what the reasons are?
For what we've been told, it's periodic maintenance.
Okay.
They're replacing poles, they're replacing transformers.
Is that what they said? Oh, those rascals. Okay. One other comment. I thank you for that. It's better than nothing. One other comment. In this Oversight Committee pamphlet, which is beautiful, it has a City of Ridgecrest map and street maintenance over the last decade, which I've seen before. What always gets my attention is my part of Bowman Road is never included. Not just for maintenance, it just doesn't exist. And, we just went through trying to convince somebody in the city that there's no sewer line down that part of Bowman Road. And I think we were successful then. But we live in a little detached Balkan enclave of the city along Bowman Road, and it's easy for everybody to forget about us. Normally that's good, but I wish we were at least on the map. Yeah. I thank you for that. I'm impressed with the Oversight Committee. I'm glad to see there'll be something of this and pointing to it on social media. I think that's terrific. I would like to have this mailed to everybody in the city, but of course we can't do that. It would be great if this competent, knowledgeable, hardworking committee were called in also to provide oversight on Measure P. Have your secretary type that up and I'll sign it. My friends, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other public comment from the floor? Seeing none, is there any public comment on the phones? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public comment. And we'll move on to next, which is council announcements or any direction. We'll start with Kyle. You got anything?
No announcements.
Okay. I don't have any announcements. I just have a thank you. I want to express two thank yous. First to, or maybe even a couple. First to Saracosa College Foundation for yet another incredible star party. It's wonderful to see the community starting to come back out again and experiencing the incredible resources that we have in our community. If you haven't had a chance to get up to Saracosa and actually walk around it, they've done a ton of work. They are an incredible resource to this community, and we should be doing everything in our power to encourage our local employers, our local educators, and even our local citizens that are looking for a way to make improvements in their lives to get involved and to take advantage of Saracosa. We have an incredible resource in this community that is not fully utilized. The second was I wanted to acknowledge the Ridgecrest Community Garden. I got a chance to go out there and meet with them and their anniversary since the last meeting. And they have put in so much work in really starting to build some natural, but I want to make a plea to the public. So these guys are out there, they're giving their blood, sweat, toil to the ground to create something unique. And they've had instances where our local population has gone in there and destroyed the fruit and destroyed the actual plants and growth that they've been creating. They had somebody come in and just tear up an entire watermelon patch on them. And I just want to reiterate that, guys, we want wonderful things in this community, and it takes a community to build a community. These guys are working very hard. Even if you haven't been by the community garden, take 5 minutes and drive by. They are really working very hard to create something wonderful for our community. And I hope that in the future that resources continue to come available for the city to support those types of goals and missions. That's all I have. Scott?
No comments, thank you.
I was going to reiterate what you said. I was going to say that, but now I'll just say it. If you have the opportunity to take part in that star party, that was amazing. I saw pictures. The moon looked like I could reach out and touch it on that telescope. I saw the rings of Saturn here, locally. It was amazing. So when it comes up again, or you have any opportunity to go up there and utilize that telescope, please do it. It is well worth it. College, great job, well done, the entire team.
I forgot one more, and so I'm going to jump in there with one more, and that's I want to once again shout out to Nick and Carol Coy and the entire Veterans Advisory Committee. They held the Veteran Stand Down once again on September 30th. It's the second time I've went as mayor, but what was interesting this time, I didn't take my kids, so I was able to interact on a much larger scale with the different organizations that came into the community to help serve our veterans. And just, again, those two people worked tirelessly on behalf of our veteran community. Shout out to them and all the efforts of all the volunteers that brought yet another great stand-down event together for our community. Thank you for doing that for Ridgecrest. And I not only the city, but the city and our veterans, thank you. Okay. Next is consent calendar. All items listed in the consent are considered to be routine and non-controversial by city staff. Consent items may be approved by one motion. If no member of the council or audience wishes to comment or ask questions, if comment or discussion is desired by anyone, The item will be removed from the council agenda and will be considered in listed sequence with an opportunity for any member of the public to address the city council concerning the item before the action is taken. I will now read each item. There is one item on the consent calendar. It is the proposed action to approve draft minutes of the Ridgecrest City Council regular meeting dated September 21st, 2022. Is there any member of the council which wishes to have an item pulled?
No.
Is there any member of the public which wishes to have an item pulled? Hearing none, do I have a motion for approval of the consent calendar as presented?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion second.
Please vote. Maybe.
No.
I think we're having system issues.
It's not taking them.
We'll go with a
Roll call?
roll call. Mayor Bruin?
Oh, there.
There goes.
Mayor Bruin?
Aye. I picked it up at the last minute. Aye.
Mr. Blades?
Aye.
Mr. Rajaratnam?
Aye.
Mr. Heyman?
Aye.
Ms. Breeden?
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, next item is item number 3. This is our regularly scheduled discussion regarding the Board of the Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Authority, Mr. Heyman, but I don't think they've met since.
Thank you, Mayor. So we have not met, the GA itself, our next meeting will be on November 9th. And so I will have a report out on that on November 16th at the next council meeting. So the only thing I'd like to discuss a little bit is about last night there was a facilitation workshop that was held here in the chambers and was provided by Stantec and the Water District. And so I attended and Councilman Blades was there and I saw Mayor Bruin present. And so I just wanted to kind of go over a little bit about that. And so it was an interesting meeting, very different from what I was kind of expecting. So we had a brief overview of the findings from their survey that Stantec had performed. And then we broke into little groups and went over some of the areas, issues, or not issues, but items that they had listed that were as a result of the survey. So on that list, there was one of the items that caught my attention was the science. And so there's debate on whether we have enough science or is the science acceptable or reliable. And so in my mind, my opinion is that we have a very substantial amount of science. I just want to point out that DWR, when they passed the GSP, it was passed based on the best available science. And so that pretty much covers that topic in my book, that they wouldn't have passed that GSP if we weren't basing it on quality and the best available science that we have to go on. And so I just want to make that clear to everybody that that GSP was passed based on the best available science. There was another item regarding public comment not being answered. DWR has looked at that and has determined that the GA has adequately answered public comment and looked at other solutions, from the public. And so, and kind of related to that, is a solution that you see bounced around quite a bit is brackish water. And so brackish water, a lot of folks will say, well, we want to pump brackish water, but brackish water in the last, I don't know if it's last water district meeting, but a relatively recent water district meeting that I watched, one of the board members had inquired to the general manager about brackish water and wanted to pursue that. And Don Zadiba, the general manager, informed me that brackish water, the cost is not feasible. It's very expensive. I believe there was a study done that looked into the brackish water, and if my numbers are correct, I believe it's around $3,000 an acre foot. So the GA has definitely looked at brackish water along with many other options or solutions that people have brought up over these past many years. Another point about that brackish water is you're still pumping water, chronically lowering the groundwater in storage. And Sigma has specifically stated that that is not an acceptable result, the chronic lowering of groundwater. And so I'm still trying to form an opinion on what, my overall consensus of that meeting was. I had a very good discussion in these groups. We broke into little groups and, I had a good discussion with the folks in my group. I think that was a positive part of the meeting. But in going home and looking at, the meeting as a whole, I don't see where it addressed any of the very difficult, substantial issues that we are forced and facing in this process of trying to sustain our groundwater in the basin. And so, but that was my interpretation of it. I want to pass over to Councilman Blades to see, what his comments might be.
I thought that the meeting itself, you could tell that it was in good spirit, right? The intent of the meeting was to get people together, stakeholders to talk. Now, it was, after the meeting was over, it broke, and everybody's standing around talking to each other. And as I'm looking out across the room, I noticed that it was a lot of the same folks. Now, I don't know who was online, right? So I'm not going to vouch for that. But what I saw was a lot of the same people. And you saw a large representation of agriculture in the valley. You saw a lot of the same people who are in the know, right? That's not a bad thing. There are some people that are heavily involved. You saw the Water District Board here. You saw a lot of us from the council. And I couldn't help but think that those discussions that we had in those breakout meetings, because if you were part of it, you probably saw us break out into different meetings, and then you couldn't hear us at all. I couldn't help but think those conversations probably should have been had quite a while ago. Now, I don't know what prevented those conversations from happening, and I wasn't, having this conversation in 2010, 2015, and 16, and maybe somebody can, Ron, I don't know if you were having those conversations with folks then, but the point is, we're having them now in 2022, late in the year, when we're seeing, geez, if you looked around that room, you saw the amount of money and lawyers being spent that was, you could just see dollar signs filling up the seats. Everybody's lawyered up to the hilt. But we were there as a community in good spirits to, and in good faith to have conversations that probably needed to happen. My worry was that it was a too little too late, the ship has sailed scenario. The topics were all topics that probably should have been had, I'm guessing, again, probably around 2015, 16, some couple years back. I would love to have seen that happen. I would love to have been around for it, and I would love to have been involved in the conversation to be having those talks. I don't know that they would have been any different. And now, Peggy, I know you were. I didn't intentionally skip over the top of you. I can pause and let you go ahead.
There was those meetings. We had numerous meetings when we had them both at Spring Hill Suites, and we had the entire room full of people talking. We had them here. There was that discussion. And so is it too little, too late? I don't think it's ever too late. But the point that because there was no direction defined at that time, it probably was more information gathering by everybody rather than sharing the people talking. Although many committees were broken into and said, let's get started and do it. So yes, it was done. So.
No, and that's good. I assumed that it had been. And anybody, as soon as I got put on the council, I got appointed in 2019. The very first thing I did is I went around to anybody who would actually talk to me about water, like a real honest conversation. And there's only a few of them out there. Some people were a little reluctant. And I learned everything that I could, and everything that Ron could send me. If it was a piece of paper, I tried to read it about water. I've even read the drainage plan, which is pretty dry. There's no pun intended. It's just it's rough. But I'm not trying to get off topic here. But the moral of the story is, once I started educating myself about water, I realized that, man, we're along a path here, and the more we fight about this, we are setting our future generations up for failure. And I'm not trying to get on top of a soapbox or anything, but that was another thing that I pulled out of the meetings. I thought, wow, we're sitting here, even the fact that we're rehashing and discussing some of these things. I was thinking, boy, yeah, we should be talking. We should be having discussions for sure. That should always. You're right about that, Peggy. So let me push back on my own opinion there. Yes, we should always have those discussions. I brought up at some point, I would love to sit right back down with, like Chuck Griffin and I, right? We seem to have a very good relationship going back and forth. We disagree, and I don't think he would have a problem with saying the same thing right back at me with the direction that things are going, but that was what I took out of the meeting, Scott. I took out of the meeting that the state had offered resources for facilitation. The facilitation was done in good faith, and I think the water district extended their hand in good faith, and I appreciate them doing that. My worry is that with the adjudication on the table, with, you have how many lawsuits being filed? I think the count was it 5 or 8?
7.
7?
I believe.
Right? When you have that amount of legal action rolling around, yeah, it was good for the public to see that people are all having these discussions, but where are they going to go?
Right.
And I'm disappointed to even say that. I don't want anybody to get the impression that I'm raining on the parade or that my outlook is just nothing but negative. I'm just being realistic. My realistic view is I sat in there and the meeting was getting over and I presented for our group. I went and I sat down and I thought, the public is looking at this likely thinking that something fruitful is going to come out of this.
Exactly.
And I was thinking, man, I feel like we're letting the public down. That's how I felt when I left, and I didn't like that feeling. But again, was it done in good faith? Yes. What did come out of it was maybe some people saw eye to eye that weren't seeing eye to eye before we walked in. And maybe those conversations happening that's going to allow a better negotiation when the adjudication does happen and when people are sitting around the table. That could be what happens, and I hope it is. I'm being optimistic, but the realistic part of me didn't leave the meeting hopeful.
Did they share with you what the end result was of that, or was there any? I was not able to attend, and I haven't been able to see it online, but was the expectation that solutions are going to be found?
I'm sorry, go ahead, Scott.
Anybody?
Well, so they're not finished, and so they're going to take the information that they gleaned from the meeting last night and then go back and they will come up with areas that, that they can, I forget was it not Julie?
I forget her name, the facilitator.
Lisa, I'm sorry. Lisa said that they will go back with that data, and then some areas she feels like there's areas that there's room for change and can help in some areas. But again, my concern was that the real challenges, the real serious decisions, the areas that we're having to work with, are they being addressed in this meeting, in this format? Is it going to prolong it? That would be terrible. The longer we prolong this, then certain people win off of that. We don't as a community, we don't as a city. I don't want to see prolonging this, but.
No, I think that was the other thing that we didn't get to discuss a lot. I mean, the meeting was there to discuss facilitation. How do we get people together, stakeholders, and have good conversations, and we all work together? And again, I just want to say again for a third time, so nobody out there who's watching this meeting later thinks that I'm being completely negative. It was done in good faith. So that I appreciated. What I did not appreciate was that there was parts of the conversation that were not being had. We were being very positive, great. We didn't argue, even better. But there was an elephant sitting in the room. I mean, the whole time, the elephant in the room is, well, the legal proceedings are moving forward. The chances of stepping out of those legal proceedings, I've been told, probably not high, but again, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't say that. Also, there's some facts that we never approached. Right? I mean, we purposely didn't approach them for the sake of, good spirits and not arguing. I mean, nobody talked about why we were here. Nobody talked about Sigma and the basin needing to be managed. Nobody talked about what it's like to mine the basin. A lot of people don't even use those words out in the public. What does mining the basin even mean? Well, it means that you're going to continue to draw it down and that you're not getting it back into, where it should be. We understand that there's a recharge rate. No, what we did is we dug down into the details and argued about things that have been argued about since, how long do you think, Peggy, do you think people have been arguing about these things?
Pardon me?
How long do you think people have been arguing about the facts and the data of this valley?
I think since 1925.
At least, since 1925. And that's not an
Because when
exaggeration.
the first reports started coming out.
That's not an exaggeration. I think you can probably thank Mr. Mulholland for that, right, for the analysis of this basin. So,
But the only
Okay.
thing is, if we expect change out of this, I think we need to look at, we are bound by, as you put, the hundreds of thousands of dollars that are being spent on lawyers. And those changes are going to be part of a court decision, not from us. And I think if we think that rules are going to be changed, the law is going to be changed, that when the government says this is what you do, and you have to follow those laws, how do you think we're going to change it? The state said you will prepare a plan, we will have the opportunity to prove it, and you, once you've been, as a critically overdrafted basin, you must do these things.
And I'd like to add to that, that the state has also granted us $7 million to implement that groundwater sustainability plan. And that's really important. So
I just want to make sure that we keep the conversation going, again, to keep us on track with.
well, so here's good point, Mr. Mayor. So let's keep on track. So how this represents, how this ties back to groundwater authority in our discussion is that the facilitation process, a lot of those stakeholders spent a whole lot of the evening beating up the groundwater authority and calling into question what the ground authority has done in the past, what it's doing in the future, what it's doing right now. Those were all topics that came up a lot. And I'm sure Scott didn't take it personal. You're just one member of that board. I didn't take it personal. I'm not on that board at all.
no, we were participating in it.
But, right, we participated in the room, but what I'm saying is, that was the common theme of the night. Let's make sure we call back into question things that have been called into questions for years and years and years and years, and I didn't feel like we made a lot of traction, right? I think, I'm not a lawyer, but my thought process is if we want to actually make traction, we pull all those stakeholders into a room with the attorneys, we sit around a table where there's attorney-client privilege, and I think that's when you hash it out. And I think you really actually hash it out where people are making decisions across the table. That's my thought process. I think we could learn a lot from getting together like that, and I hope the stakeholders in the future continue to do those sorts of things. But anyways, you asked what my take on it was, and that's how it ties back to this groundwater authority discussion, because the groundwater authority is currently working for this community. And the county is doing the same thing. As much as I've heard people, rain on the county, God, I keep using, I don't even mean to make puns, but they just.
We have no rain.
I think, it's because I'm a dad. As much as I hear a lot of negativity thrown at the county, that's an agricultural county. Kern County makes a lot of it's ag. It's ag and oil. Right? There's no part of the Kern County that really wants to be negative towards agriculture. Correct. But we are where we are. So that's just to wrap it back around, Mr. Mayor. I apologize. We did veer off a little bit.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Thank you, Councilman Blades. I think we had a pretty similar interpretation of the meeting.
So we'll go and close that off with just one quick comment. I just want to reiterate for the public. Anybody who's got a concern that we're not well aware of water, come back and listen to this and listen to all of us chiming in here. We are very keenly aware of water, and it's a continuing discussion point for this council. Okay, next would be.
Were you going to have?
Public comment. Yeah, is there any public comment from the floor? Sorry. Yep. I did fail to do that.
Kathy Russell, 500 Amanda Street. Thank you, Scott and Kyle, for going to that workshop. I meant to go, but for some reason didn't make it. But I also am very discouraged, maybe not very optimistic, that we can solve this ourselves once we put it in somebody else's hands. If you've all worked in a scenario where you have people above you, and if you can't solve the problem at your level, when it goes up a level, it generally doesn't get solved how you thought it was going to be, and the people there don't really benefit from that. So I'm not very optimistic that this is all going to work out. I did have one question. I know Don Zadiba has put several articles in the paper about consumption and what we can do, and I know there was a real big push for zero-scaping years ago, and that seems to have kind of gone by the wayside, and there's probably more than 50% of the yards in town that have grass and water flow, and I know that's not a big thing because agriculture is probably the biggest thing with the 1,600 acres of Pistachio Farm. Is that about what it is? And
Yeah, and I think the last estimate was that the agriculture, correct me if I'm wrong, Scott's using up some, out of the valley, some 75% of the water that gets
Right.
used in this valley is from agriculture.
And so with that, when they applied for their permits for the farm, which I'm assuming they had to, that goes through Kern County?
Yeah,
Is
it was
that
some years
correct?
ago with the county. Yeah.
And so Kern County, being agricultural based, probably said, sure, that sounds like a great idea. And I
Yeah.
don't know, how does that work out? How did that?
So we've, in some way, shape, or form over the years, we've had that discussion with the county. Like, I mean, we have no problem looking back at the county like, come on, guys, you could have helped us out here sometime in the past. And they were like, hey, what are we going to do? I mean, some people have horses and stuff out there. Do we just go and rezone everything? Is that how we control the entire county? And in some cases, I think that did have to
Right.
happen. I'm not speaking for the county, right? I'm not a supervisor. I'm just saying those are discussions I've heard out of the corner of my ear, just paying attention. That sorry, go ahead, Peggy. Yeah.
One thing we need to remember is that without our former supervisor, Mick Gleason, pushing this for us to look at what this means, and when the state said, this is what will happen, it was Mick who was there saying, we need to have a little bit more control over what happens here as opposed to all of Kern County.
And I guess that would be my optimism to say, we have a strong community, we've survived things. And I was at the workshop a year ago, and I saw many people thought that the replenishment fee and the extraction fee are actually buying water right now. They thought, well, if we run out, we're just going to have water. So I think there's a huge amount of the population doesn't really realize how bad that situation is. So a lot of that is media putting things out, trying to put more faith in zero-scaping, getting rid of things that are taking water that we don't need. And I don't know how we do that, but at least we have control over that, I guess.
Yes, I will say this, a plug for the water district. I think they strongly encourage where they can. I know some years ago they offered a cash for grass type program. Mm-hmm. I try to chime into as many meetings as I can that they have, and I know that there was such a drastic reduction in water at some point that we actually had a problem with the sewer system. So, I mean, the community does respond pretty well, and I think the water district does what they can. I mean, they sure try to maintain a good system, to keep us as efficient as we can on that front. But it's worth noting that we will never, the way the numbers look, we will never conserve our way out of this.
Correct.
No, I understand that, but I guess in my point, I would rather feel like I was doing something positive instead of nothing, and instead of just planting more grass and watering more grass, to be responsible to go, no, I know I can't put it back, but at least maybe I can conserve and use less water like they want people to do. So I'm just trying to, putting it back to us to try to do something positive. So
I agree with that. Let's be positive. Let's always put it back on ourselves. And I want to say that where I get my optimism from is that the state, I know not everybody in the room is always a fan of state politics, okay, and we can argue that till the cows come home, but the state at least approved our GSP. The state said, go ahead and take control of your own destiny, and if it's painful, you figure it out. And I was on that phone call, or I was on the line when the state called in, when Mick Gleason was still there, and he asked, point blank, what do we do? What happens if we don't figure this out? I'm summarizing. And the state had no problem saying, well, I'll tell you what, we're going to come in and we will get control over your basin, and we will monitor each one of your wells. And then when we feel like it's in the place that we want it at, we're going to hand it right back to the Groundwater Authority. So we suggest that you guys figure your stuff out. Now, she was very polite, and she said it a little bit nicer than that, but that was a summary. I remember thinking, this is big. if we don't start getting used to making hard decisions, yeah, and it's expensive and it hurts. That was one thing that got brought up last night. Strife, community strife. Yeah, yep, it's painful. It's painful, but sometimes we have to do hard things to take care of this community.
And quite honestly, sometimes we've left things unattended for so long that the pain is worse than the cure is worse than the prevention would have been.
So, Mayor, I'd like to just, in my comments, that I am optimistic that we are going to be successful with this. I am optimistic about that. The GA has made some really great strides in this process, and it's going to continue to move forward and work toward solving the water sustainability issue in this valley. So I just want to end it on a good note that there's a lot of positive things that have taken place. They have been difficult to get, but we'll continue working in that.
I'm going to hope we end on the positive note because we did not finish asking if there was any other public comment. Is there any other public comment? Okay. Then
No, other than so a member of the public messaged me while we were just talking and said that there was well over 800 on YouTube. There's a lot of people on YouTube. Last night.
Wow.
Watching that facilitation process.
impressive.
So what that likely means is there was a lot of folks that are new to this information. And I often take for granted the stuff that I spit out at every meeting that I'm thinking linearly, and I don't always go back and explain myself. So please reach out to this council, reach out to somebody that knows a lot about this water stuff because it's quite comprehensive. It's a lot to dive into. It's taken me a long time to get my head fully wrapped around every aspect. And then you have politics.
And the phone's ringing. No, because I'm not going to deny the public an opportunity if they have comment. I'm guessing, is there a caller for comment on the water? Caller, go ahead. Hold on, we're dealing with some feedback here. Caller, go ahead. Caller, go ahead.
Hello?
Hello?
Hi. Good evening, everyone.
If you can mute your television or whatever you're listening to on the background, we'd appreciate it.
I apologize. Yeah, let me turn it down just a minute. Okay, now, hi. Good evening, everyone. I appreciate all your comments and hard work. This is Kathy Brown calling, and I just want to make 2 quick comments. When the pistachio started, that 1,600 acre thing, it started around 2000, I believe, 11 or 12. And I know a lot of people at that time out here and in the whole area were saying, why was that approved? Because we're in a drought for this valley. Perhaps whoever looked at it, the county at that time, as we are ag, as you said, perhaps they could have looked at it maybe and said, instead of approving 1,600 acres, we'll approve out there in the Indian Wells Valley, perhaps maybe 500 for you guys, And that wasn't considered as far as a lot of people believe. And it was really something because we all said, we're going to lose water, and here we are, tonight, 75% of the water in this area is being taken by the ag. And, I'm not against ag. I'm not against anybody. But, like I said, it is a conundrum, if that's the right word. The other thing that people are observing in the community, and I think it's a fair observation, we're talking water conservation because we do have a problem. Some are deniers. I am not. Is when you drive down China Lake Boulevard, you see the landscaping at the beautiful Starbucks and also the beautiful Chipotle restaurant. They're beautiful. However, you see so many plants were put in there, and a lot of people are saying, "Oh, well, look at all the water that's going to supply those plants." Now, they might be a little xeriscape, but there's so many plants there that a lot of people said, didn't anybody kind of review that and say, you know what, we need to cut it down a bit? We can still have a plant or a couple, rocks. And look at Dutch Brothers. Theirs is a little bit more modified. I think it's, very inspiring. saw a lot of rocks out there and, some plants, but I think it's overkill on the plants that we're seeing at Chipotle and Starbucks. It's almost like, hey, they put these in thinking there's no water shortage. I mean, we're in a different time now, and it was a little disappointing to a lot of people observing this, in the community. And I'm not the only one. There's quite a few of us talking, so we'd like to see as we move forward with new construction that we see, yes, we want to see a xeriscape plant. I'm very aware of those because I took fabulous xeriscape classes that you guys gave in the past, and I learned so much. And that was, to me, the way to go. So, we can still have some plants, but we think that was really an overdue job. And we just want to know who was watching over that, let's look at that landscape. Wait a minute, you got 100 plants there? I think we better part down to maybe 10. Let's be a little bit more thoughtful on this process, because we're all talking water, and we don't want to go to our spigots and turn them on, and there's nothing there. It's really, really scary times for all of us. So anyway, that's just a comment tonight, and I hope that it goes forth and people think about it. We're thinking about everything actually, but I think that would be a good way to go. And also, I will say this: so when you go down China Lake, you leave Chipotle and you're headed toward. You're going north there. You'll see some plants just planted randomly that don't even have any buildings around them in that lot. That's nothing to do with the Chipotle. It's kind of like, well, they put these plants out here, but there's nothing here. It's just dirt and a mess there. Are they going to put another building there? So it's like, why put those plants in like that when there's just nothing there? So, again, it all is water conservation. So anyway, thank you guys tonight for listening. I appreciate all your hard work and everything, because it is a problem that, we're all trying to solve. So let's hope for the best, and I want to be positive too. So thank you very much for listening to me tonight. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
So thank you. Thank you, Kathy. I was going to real quick, if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor, will you allow me some? Okay, all right. So that's a very good point she brought up. How are we addressing when people come in, irrigation for plants, stuff like that? And Travis, I think you were going to jump up and you had some comments, and so I wanted to bring Travis up here. And the reason we're giving this discussion a little bit more play than we normally would is I think it's important that people understand we're paying attention.
So I think one of the big things to remember is drip irrigation is not regulated right now. And to my knowledge, it's not regulated anywhere. So all of these plants are on the approved plant list for drought-resistant and drought-tolerant plants. So they take smaller amounts of water than your typical houseplant would. So they're desert, they're indigenous to our climate, and all of those were checked. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I walked out and thought, oh, we're gonna have a huge problem when we inspected this, because I saw a bunch of pine trees. All those pine trees are on the approved list. They're drought-tolerant pine trees. So all that is looked at. And the other thing that is, I think, crucial is everybody says that what she brought up a good point, that, oh, you've got all these building pads and future things, and why do we have all this other planting? Well, I don't know about you guys, but the city has a right-of-way to maintain. And we have a list of improvements that go through the Planning Commission. And one of the biggest complaints we get is all the commercial areas that don't maintain their landscape within the public right-of-way. So one of our conditions was that they put in all the landscape within the public right-of-way within the first phase. Because I don't know about you guys, water is a huge problem. I don't think anybody is gonna deny that. But I don't personally want to drive up China Lake Boulevard and have a bunch of dirt lots where I'm constantly having to call the developer to tell him to go get a water truck and spray water all over the lot, so that way the dust doesn't kick up and invade all the houses that are to the west of the location. So I think there's a lot of positive to the DG and the few plants that they did put in. And yes, do I think that things get overwatered at times? Absolutely. But I think we are doing the best thing we can to mitigate and try to make it indigenous to the desert and try to make it, or indigenous, or I said that completely wrong, but we're trying to do our part.
Yeah, I think there's also something else that's worth mentioning, because I would say that if people are watching this, I don't know how many people are watching, or even out here in the public, the very next thing that's on the tip of their tongue is, what are you, the city, doing when we see water running off into the street, or when you're watering your grass? Why do you have lawns? And I have to say that, yeah, it's a fine line that we all walk. It's a valid question. at this time, and this is one person on the council's opinion, we would like to have grass for the community, for the entire community to enjoy. Now, we do know that some of it probably needs to go at some point, but like all that grass, I think it's important. It's important that people get to come out here and kids get to play. Not everybody has a big lawn to run around on. I don't know, I could.
Yeah, as I say, I think we could drag this on longer, and
Thanks,
I
Travis.
think we have to keep the discussion to the GA. We've had a great discussion. This has been a wonderful back and forth. I'm going to call for any other public comment. There is none. I'll bring it back to council. Again, I thank everyone. Is there any other final comments related to the GA?
Yeah, Scott, the Rose Valley, you guys, there was discussion of a well being put in up there, up at the top.
Correct.
What's that going to be for? Just monitoring?
Monitoring the water, the groundwater in that northern part of the basin. And so, and I'd asked Jean not only just the amount of water, but also the quality of water. And she will have more to report back on that at a later date, but it is in progress.
And also the brackish water study, I know it's ongoing, but I heard Don Zaduba say something about it in one of his last meetings. Is the Groundwater Authority getting that report from the Water District? Are they doing it in a vacuum, or is it a collective effort? Do you guys get any sort of a report on it, you, the board, the GA?
On the brackish water? Yes, there's correspondence between the Water District and the GA.
Thank you.
Okay. We're going to move on to item number 4. Item number 4 is a resolution to amend a professional services agreement with Wilden Engineering in the amount of $6,850 for the West Ward Phase 1 improvement project to include additional federal funding and a phase line shift. Is it me, or does it seem like we have a resolution for the West Ward Phase 1 project about every meeting?
Well, yes, because there's multiple projects within the project.
Yeah.
So this one has to do with, we had some key members of our staff that were out before my time. I don't know what the cause of that is. But needless to say, we have a lot of the state-funded invoicing side of things and things like that our staff completes. With all the key personnel that was out, there was some additional time that Wildan did that ate into some of our PS&E phases of our design work. We also have changed the boundaries and the limits of where we wanted to stop with Phase 1 award numerous times with things we felt doing the intersection of Norma would better suit us in Phase 1. Then we took a step back and said, no, it's not. And then we said, well, but we're paving through a portion of an intersection, so we've got to do ramps. So we've moved the phase around. And one of the key things that I noticed is the PS&E budget that we got from Wildan for what we were doing was less than the allotment that we had gotten for the PS&E phase of the state funding, or federal funding, I'm sorry. So I thought that the inclusion of the ramps for the design portion was a good move on our part because we get another $1,800 that we get refunded back to us. So essentially, we're trying to cover some staff time that got missed out on and use all of the budget and all of the money that we were allocated from the state and federal program to complete the project. So our Phase 2 portion of the project is all city-funded money. We went and we have been working on the Phase 2 portion in conjunction with the Phase 1 portion because we want to have a shelf-ready project. So that way, if somebody can't deliver their RSTP project this year, we can rob that money and they can have our 24 money and we can get Ward done sooner. So that's what we're here, why I'm here. I'm asking for some more money because of some things we moved, some key staff absences, and so that we can use our full allotment of federal funding for the project. And with that, I'm open for any questions.
Does any member of the council have any questions?
I don't. We've talked about Ward quite a bit, and I understand that this is a pretty straightforward thing, but I encourage any public comments, but.
This is business in my book. This is routine.
It is, but
Yeah. Is there any public comment from the floor? Any public comment on the phones? Okay, we'll bring it back to council. Is there any other further discussion, or I could call for a motion for the approval of the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and second.
We're going to have to do a roll call vote.
Okay.
Mayor
Roll call.
Bruin,
Aye.
Mr. Blades,
aye.
Mr. Rajaratnam,
Aye.
Mr. Heyman,
Aye.
Ms. Breeden.
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next is item number 5. Item number 5 is a second reading and adoption of Ordinance 2205, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Ridgecrest, amending the Ridgecrest Municipal Code as it relates to conflicts of interest.
Yes, sir. So this was brought to you originally on the 21st of September. I have made one change between that reading to this one. I noticed that the Public Works Director was listed twice. So I'm going to be deleting one of those lines. Other than that, it's the same as it was at the last meeting for first reading. Have any questions?
Well, my first thought is, Solomon, how did you miss that one? I mean, but that's just me, okay? I'm just teasing.
Is it the Public Works Director and Public Works Supervisor? Is that, because it's redlined?
Yeah, that's the red line, Public
Yes.
Works Director.
Public Works Director is here, and it says Director of Public Works.
Yeah, it's because it says Director, and yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just teasing, guys. This
Switch of
is
words.
resolution updates. Is there any council discussion?
No, I think Solomon just likes to let stuff slip through sometimes if the rest of us are paying attention.
Well, it tested Rika, so I mean, she passed this one.
Yay, me.
Yeah. Is there any public comment? Seeing none from the floor. Is there any public comment on the phone? I'm seeing none. We'll go ahead and bring it back to the council. Any final discussions, or do I have a motion? Yeah. Do I have a motion to waive reading in full of Ordinance 2205, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Ridgecrest amending the Ridgecrest Municipal Code as it relates to conflict of interest?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Roll call.
Mayor Bruin,
Aye.
Mr. Blades,
Aye.
Mr. Rajaratnam,
Aye.
Mr. Heyman,
Aye.
Ms. Breeden.
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
And then do I have a motion to adopt by title only Ordinance 2205, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Ridgecrest amending the Ridgecrest Municipal Code as it relates to conflicts of interest?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Mayor Bruin,
Aye.
Mr. Blades,
Aye.
Mr. Rajaratnam,
Aye.
Mr. Heyman,
Aye.
Ms. Breeden.
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, next is committee reports. Are there any infrastructure? Did it meet?
Yeah, we canceled.
Yeah, we canceled. And just for point of note, the city org meeting for tomorrow night has been canceled. I'll just simply say it's October and an even year, and we'll be returning to our regularly scheduled programming shortly. Any other committees, boards, or commissions?
How many people are watching right now, Rika? 17. So I just want to encourage people who are watching, if you see that those committees get canceled, usually the reason they're canceled, it's either staff availability. Sometimes there's nothing on there, and we've been meeting every month, and then there's nothing to talk about. So we feel like we're wasting staff time, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Strand, overtime, right? Sometimes we're paying staff overtime to be at those meetings.
Yes, some.
Right. So sometimes we go, the department head will call the chair and say, hey, do you really want to do this? Most of the time we say, yeah, we want to have the meeting anyways, because we think it's important that the public have a venue to show up to. But let me be very clear, I rarely have anybody show up to at least the committees that I'm a part of, which is the infrastructure, which is a big one, and the economic development committee. I understand people are busy, but so don't be too frustrated if you see us cancel it. Because you can always get a hold of us. That's what I'm saying. Please get a hold of me. If you go, hey, your infrastructure meeting was canceled, I had a lot of stuff I wanted to bring up, please do send me a long email, give me a phone call, shoot me a Facebook message, and I will keep track of that, and I will come back to the Public Works Director, and we will figure that answer out and have that discussion. either immediately or at the next committee meeting.
I'm going to add something to what Kyle said, just as a perspective. And this is a compliment to our entire city staff and also what we've been working on so hard over the last 2 years in terms of communication. We are communicating with our staff much more regularly on a consistent basis, and that allows sometimes for us to say, okay, do we need to physically have a meeting at this time for items that were already in process or taking place? And I want to reiterate what Kyle says is, we are always open. We're here to hear you, and we're available. You know, my email gets checked every single day. My phone gets checked every single day. I get text messages or messengers or Facebook posts. We're out there communicating like they're madmen, and we welcome all of your ideas. And a meeting being canceled may simply be that there's nothing new to update on the projects that are in process. Okay. City manager report.
Yes, just a couple items. About 2 weeks ago, city staff put out a quality of life survey on social media. To date, we've had about 300 responses. The survey will be open in about another week or so. We're hoping to get some participation from the base on that, and we'll hopefully be discussing that during city manager's comments during our next meeting. Another item, if you've noticed, it looks like we're going to be slurry sealing the east city parking lot. Staff has done all their prep work. They've planed it, ground the parking lot to where it's even. They've filled the cracks. Travis, also, we took a look at it, decided we were going to start updating our ADA access handicap ramps. So you'll notice in the area where the police department administration parks, you'll see the sidewalk removed. That's going to be put in with new ADA ramps. And as we work our way around the building and are updating and slurry sealing our parking lot, we're going to be updating the handicap access as we go along. So we're hoping to try and set a good example in trying to keep our facility accessible to the handicap. So those are the two items I had for tonight. Good.
Thank you, sir. When we went through the committees, I just realized that Quality of Life met yesterday, but we didn't put it on the actual agenda. And did you catch that too in the midst there? I went going, wait, hold on. We just did Quality of Life yesterday. So Quality of Life met yesterday. Another great meeting. They have a ton of projects. I guess I would welcome, again, public is welcome to hear at these meetings, but the overall message that is coming out of it is we've got a ton of stuff coming in 23. Narissa is fully stacked and racked in terms of parks projects for the next 12 to 36 months, and we're only going to add to it. I would say there were conversations and communications about where some of these projects are relative to, project design, completion dates. I know that there were conveyed hopes for when certain projects would reach completion, especially to make sure that the public sees the amount of work that's being put into it. And then the other one I just want to highlight is October 28th is the return to the trunk or treat, and the Movies in the Park is this weekend? 14th, sorry. So we have a Movies in the Park for Hocus Pocus on October 14th, and thank you again to Alta One Federal Credit Union for sponsoring Movies in the Park. And then we have our trunk or treat on October 28th. And we've went without, that incredible trunk or treat event, but I got a sneaking suspicion that this one is going to top all the previous just by the enthusiasm that Narissa expressed to us about people getting involved. So,
and Christmas tree lights will be
well, I'm waiting for them for that one.
But it's ongoing, and one of the topics was
You're talking about making the tree right?
the lights going around the tree, and so, but all good stuff. So thank you to Narissa and staff There's a lot of good.
I just want to promise the public that, yes, we understand we're going to go around the tree. We heard you loud and clear. Beyond that, I mean, I just want to go ahead one more time since this is the committee report. We have shade structures going in at the Kerr-McGee ball fields. We have working towards. Let me rephrase. This is just the short list of the things we're working on. Shade structures at the Kerr-McGee ball fields, shade structure and seating at the skate park, Wi-Fi through our local parks, the Clean California grant, which will improve the walking paths and receptacles, water fountains, those items at Leroy Jackson Sports Complex.
Mr. Mayor, you're on the Parks and Rec Committee. If there is not bathrooms at those softball fields at some point, my wife is going to lose her mind.
I invite you to the next October meeting.
Okay.
Of the city council.
I just want to.
November meeting. Okay, I invite you to the November meeting.
I know you guys have to rack and stack, and you're taking comments from the public. I'm just telling you
that one is absolutely queued up, and that's just an example of that. And then the tennis courts, the lighting. We are out there finding new things every single day, and we have a stack of projects. And I promise you that the bathroom at both. The bathroom at Leroy Jackson is already planned funding, but I can assure you that the bathrooms at Pearson Park are equally being raised on the regular.
Right. I was being jovial, but it's something that I recognize as an issue when I was out there, during.
Yeah, they both need to.
Yeah, we do plan on adding, as you know, is the project that we have with Clean California. We've added the tennis courts to that. There's also the intent to add the bathrooms at the softball fields at the same time, so we can do it all as one project.
Yep. Okay. I think that's it for that. Future agenda items? A bathroom at... It made it to the future agenda items. How funny is that? Anybody else? No? Mayor, council comments? Start with Peggy.
No, thank you.
None?
Kyle?
Yeah, you have a few things to say. Hey, I kept my lip shut the last meeting, okay? And you guys all. So, I want to thank the public for, especially the people who get involved. I'm looking right here at John Harbour. I don't know how many things that you do, especially. I look out, Holly, thank you for what you did with the Measure V committee. I look at you guys who are sitting in the seats, participating, and those that are online. Thank you for the positivity and keeping things going. It's not as easy these days. Not if you spend any amount of time on social media. If you spend more than a few minutes just to check notifications and messages, you're going to become exasperated eventually, and you're going to. My opinion is that you're going to start to think that things in this community are worse off than they are. Sometimes I get sucked in. I get pulled in and paying way too much attention to comments. And I can tell you that as a council member, I've been here for a little over 2 years now. Seeing the things that get said about this council, I often wonder where does this information come from? And I think that needs to be said out loud. And it's not like a call out of the public, but it's a direct challenge. If you have an assumption about this council and about this board, by all means, it is your right to have it. You should have it. You should question. Like Skip, he has no problem calling out and asking questions, and I appreciate it. That's the way it should be. But those are just questions and a discussion, and let's have those. But the amount of stuff I've seen in the public about a board that if you don't know what you're talking about, then maybe you should not be that guy. Let's figure it out. That's not the only thing I wanted to say. I wanted to say that in this community, you've seen a lot of positivity, and you see things moving forward. And if you look out on the global scale, if you're paying attention to the news, things aren't great in global news right now. I don't know if anybody's paying attention to Ukraine and Russia, but we're dangerously close to the Cuban Missile Crisis stage right now. And I'm sure there's other people who are paying attention to the news, but it's not a pretty picture. So let's try to control what we can control here in our community. And let's try to be positive to each other. Peggy, you're usually the one who's always cheerleading the positivity. And what I'm doing is I'm giving myself a speech more than anything else, because I can tell you that a week or so ago, I was not as optimistic about, I was not as optimistic and positive as I am today, because I needed to give myself the pep talk and realize that there is so much good going on. The mayor got a message from a group that they're wanting to go out and do their own city cleanup. There's people, there's Girl Scout troops getting a hold of us and Boy Scout troops getting a hold of us. There's a lot of people out there that are not paying attention to the negativity, and they're just getting stuff done. And I'm just encouraging everybody else to do the exact same thing. This is election season, so I want to, say thank you to everybody who's putting themselves out there. It's not an easy thing to put yourself into the public, into the limelight, to answer the questions, to sit up on a board and then see what people say about you later on social media. That's not an easy thing, especially if you're new to it. But thank you for everybody who's doing that. I think that's all I had.
Well, thank you, sir. And Kyle is a master at putting together some words that mean a lot. Yeah. There's been days like that, and I think we've all shared them, and we've shared them together, which has been what's been great. We've got an incredible community here, guys. We are doing some incredible things, and I am entirely confident that in the short run, we're going to be celebrating what the next things we're going to be doing together, and I look forward to doing those with you. If you think that the world out there is as crazy and as out to get you as you think it is, try having a one-on-one conversation with the person that you think is out to get you, and you might be surprised at actually what their real intentions are, and where their real heart and soul is. And I think we all up here feel that, and I know that I've had my ups and downs, especially lately, so appreciate that. And we're gonna push on. We're gonna knock out some great things here in the coming months. So with that, I call the meeting adjourned. Have a great evening. Have a great night, and we'll see everybody again on the 19th.